Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into our time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
An hour of Bob Bailey as yours truly, Johnny Dollar. We'll talk a little bit about the history of the show after this first segment. This year's truly Johnny Dollar segment goes back after the quarter-hour episodes. This one is from March 2nd, 1958. This episode is entitled The Diamond Dilemma Matter.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Johnny Dollar.
Bert Major, Johnny. Masters Insurance and Trust.
Oh, hi, Bert.
Do you know anything about spacemen?
Never saw any, if that's what you mean.
Neither have I. But I know somebody who thinks he's been contacted by them.
Oh, sure. I have some whimsical friends, too.
Not funny, Johnny. The company is betting $2 million that this man is either a liar or pulling one of the biggest hoaxes in history.
$2 million?
That's right. Conrad Billings. Ever hear of him?
Billings, Texas Oil, one of the richest men in the country?
Right. Presently of California, where he's holed up in an isolated mountaintop lodge. Minus a $2 million collection of diamonds he took up there with him.
And you insured them?
Yes, but not against ordinary theft.
What does that mean?
Those stones were insured against theft by persons or things unknown on this earth.
What?
That's right.
Holy... You're serious, aren't you?
You bet I'm serious.
Okay, Bert, I'll see you at your office.
Bob Bailey in the exciting adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
And now, Act One of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to the Home Office, Masters Insurance and Trust Company, Hartford, Connecticut. Following is an account of expenses incurred during my investigation of the Diamond Dilemma matter. Expense account item 1, $3.20 for a taxi to the office of Bert Major. I've known Bert a long time, and he's been in and out of too many deals, big and little, to get excited over nothing. But he was excited now.
This whole thing is incredible, Johnny. Fantastic. It's utterly impossible for $2 million worth of diamonds to simply vanish into thin air.
So it's impossible.
But it's happened. The police out there in California state positively that no man on earth could possibly have gotten to those stones.
Then, Bertram, tell me all.
All right. 2 weeks ago, Conrad Billings called me from his lodge up in Northern California. Said he wanted to insure the diamonds immediately.
Over the phone?
Over the phone.
You're sure it was really he?
I'm not that naive. I had the call traced.
How come he called you?
We've done some business with a wealthy friend of his in Dallas. Recommended.
Uh-huh. And he had the stones with him there at the lodge?
Yes. And, Johnny, it's one of the most isolated spots on Earth.
You're sure he had them there?
He loves diamonds, Johnny. Almost to the point of obsession. He plays with them like a kid plays with marbles. Lord knows he can afford to.
So you insured $2 million worth of diamond marbles over the phone?
I did.
And you say you weren't naive? Oh, look, a remote lodge, an eccentric old man, some expensive baubles. A rank amateur could get at him.
You haven't listened to me, Johnny. You've missed the point entirely. I wouldn't care if he left the diamonds lying out on his front doorstep. I insured those diamonds solely against theft by persons or things unknown on this earth. That's the exact wording of the policy.
And now they're gone?
Yes.
So, someone took them?
Prove it.
What?
Someone, and not something.
Now, why would anybody in his right mind want to insure against theft by other than people?
I asked myself that question. My answer was that a billionaire in active command of his business empire must be of sound mind. And if he wants to satisfy a whim and is willing to pay for it, why should my company refuse his money?
You think maybe he has an obsession about flying saucers and the people or things who fly them?
Who knows? Or what knows? Johnny, you've got to go out there and make some sense out of all this.
Who are the contacts so far?
The head of his San Francisco office, Norton Shields. The chief of police in Lakeview, about 30 miles from Billings Lodge, and the insured.
Okay, I'll call you, Bert, but not from Mars. Expense account item 2, $280, deluxe flight with trimmings, Hartford to San Francisco. A pea soup fog was rolling up Market Street, and it was 2 a.m. when I finally got to the office of Billings Enterprises and met Norton Shields. He was wide awake, sharp, about 35.
Yes, Mr. Dollar, I've been in charge of Billings West Coast operation for 10 years, with time out for Korea.
Pretty young for such a responsibility.
Billings hired me because I know the oil business. I learned it young.
Uh-huh. You like him?
You don't have to like a man just because you work for him. He's shrewd and knows how to make money.
But he has foibles.
Yes, he has foibles. Diamonds.
Have you ever seen them?
Sure.
Where?
Oh, here in the office, at the lodge where he is now, at his home.
You're certain he took them up to that lodge?
3 weeks ago tonight, they were spread out right here on this desk. He put them one by one in a chamois bag, put the bag in his pocket. I walked him to his car, and he was driven straight to the lodge.
All right. What about the flying saucers, the spacemen, or whatever it is?
No, that's a new one. I learned of it when Mr. Major called, disclosed the terms of the insurance, and the fact that the diamonds had been, that they were gone.
You haven't talked this over with Billings himself?
No, I haven't.
Don't you think you should?
Why? If he wants me, he'll call me.
How do I get to this lodge?
I have a company plane and pilot ready to fly you to Clear Lake in the morning. You'll be met there by a car and driver. Anything else you want, call me.
Why all the cooperation when you're not even supposed to know what's going on?
A good lieutenant knows when to follow orders before they're issued. You're registered at the Mark Hopkins. You better get some sleep.
Yeah, I may need it.
Act two of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in a moment.
March 12th, 1958, yours truly, Johnny Dollar on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Most everybody, when you mention yours truly, Johnny Dollar, thinks of Bob Bailey. Bob Bailey was the fourth Johnny Dollar. Charles Russell, Edmund O'Brien, and John Lund played Dollar from 1949 until 1954. After a year-long hiatus in 1955, the quarter-hour Johnny Dollars came along with Bob Bailey and Jack Johnstone spearheading the thing. Of course, Bailey as Dollar, Jack Johnstone as the writer-producer. And the show was great until its conclusion in 1962. Bob Bailey didn't make it till the end, of course. They moved the production to New York. Bob Reddick took over as Dollar for a while, and then Mandel Kramer brought his touch, more in line with the Bob Bailey performance of Johnny Dollar. Now, let us move back to the half-hour shows here. After a little over a year, CBS gave up on the quarter-hour concept. The show became a 25-minute program, as you will hear here in this episode. March 2nd, 1958, The Diamond Dilemma Matter. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
And now, Act two of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, and the Diamond Dilemma Matter.
The company plane turned out to be a plush two-engine amphibian waiting for me at a private dock near the Golden Gate Bridge. The pilot introduced himself, and we headed due north up San Pablo Bay and then northwest past the Valley of the Moon. Then, a few minutes later, we glided in for a landing on Clear Lake, the largest body of water in the state of California. There, I was met by a car and a driver as promised. How far is it to Mr. Billings' lodge, driver?
About 30 miles.
What do you do when Mr. Billings isn't here?
Wait for him.
Do you, live at the lodge?
Nobody does. Just Mr. Billings.
No caretakers, housekeepers, anything like that?
Just Mr. Billings.
Well, surely there must be someone to look
Look,
after.
mister, I'm hired to drive a car. I do it. And that's all.
The car twisted and turned through some lush country, then left the highway and climbed a narrow mountain road with signs every couple of 100 yards marked private in big letters. After several miles of this, during which we passed through a couple of gates that had to be opened manually, we came to a high steel wire gate with equally high fencing stretching out in either direction. A small redwood blockhouse squatted inside. The driver made a U-turn, stopped in front of this gate, then reached around and opened the door.
This is it, mister.
This is it?
Yep.
Okay, if you say so. But if this is a millionaire's idea... Hey, wait a minute! Huh. Well, if this really is the place, I may as well get...
Can't you read? You touch that gate and you will be electrocuted.
What?
Your name, Dollar?
That's right. Who are you and what's the idea?
Speak up. Where were you at exactly 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon?
Well, if it means anything to you, I was talking with a man named Bert Major in Hartford, Connecticut.
Come in.
The big gate swung open, and I gingerly walked through it, as per instruction from the loudspeaker nestled in the wall of the redwood blockhouse.
You drive, don't you?
Yes.
Then get in that car you see there and follow the road.
The car referred to by the voice was parked against the blockhouse on the far side. I did as I was told. After a while, the road narrowed to a single track and continued on up the mountain. At one point, there was a solid granite overhang, a sheer drop of 1,000 feet or more, and another gate that opened as I approached it and closed behind me. Finally, I rounded a turn where a fill had been made, and a moment later, it came out on top. A few hundred yards away, across the terrace top of the mountain, was a charming rustic lodge. I drove over to it.
Good morning, Mr. Dollar.
Mr. Billings?
Come in.
Hearing about this man was strange enough. Seeing him was even more of a shock. About 5'2", flashing gray eyes, bullet bald. He was wearing a baggy old jacket that hung nearly to his knees.
This way. I want you to see my view of the lakes below. Well?
Beautiful.
What was that?
I said beautiful.
Yes, it is. Now, Mr. Major has informed you of the insurance on my diamonds, which disappeared 2 nights ago.
Yes, sir. He told me that...
Speak up!
He told me you insured $2 million worth of diamonds against theft by persons or things unknown on this earth.
Exactly. And I wish to collect from your company on that basis.
Well, Tell me, where did you keep them?
Right here on this table in front of the window, right here.
You mean to say you didn't lock up such valuable property?
Mr. Dollar, let me show you something. Look here, on my control panel. Do you recall the series of gates you pass through after leaving the main road?
Yeah, very well.
Well, by means of my electronic devices, I followed your progress every inch of the way.
Well, I'll be darned.
I watched your arrival at the main gate on this video screen. Ingenious, eh?
That's putting it mildly.
What did you say?
I say that's putting it mildly.
Yes. As I'm sure you noticed, this mountaintop is completely encircled by a 12-foot electrified fence. Between it and the inner fence is a maze of photoelectric cells. This panel controls floodlights with which I can cover every inch of ground between the 2 fences. These viewers are geared to the floodlights. All of this equipment is automatically activated on contact. In short, Mr. Dollar, I can detect and follow any person or thing which moves through or between these 2 fences.
Anyone who knows electricity could cut your fences and come right on up the road.
I did not say this mountaintop was impregnable. I said no one could reach it without my knowledge.
Why did you take out such limited insurance on your diamonds, Mr. Billings?
I've made my money by leaving nothing, absolutely nothing, to chance. Now that man has projected objects into outer space, it is reasonable to assume that other planets may be ahead of us in technical endeavors. Diamonds would be of tremendous value to an unknown civilization.
Well, look, how do I know this is not just an elaborate scheme to collect $2 million?
A fair question, Mr. Dollar.
What would prevent you from hiding those diamonds somewhere on this mountain?
I should consider that question an affront to my integrity, but under the circumstances, I do not. I simply defy you to find them.
Then what's your explanation of their disappearance?
I have none. And unless you find one, I intend to collect from your company under the terms of the policy.
Mr. Major mentioned the chief of police in Lakeview. Do you mind if I talk to him?
Andy Prentice? Not at all. I have a direct phone to his office and his home. Would you care to talk to him now?
No, thanks. But I would like to use your car.
By all means. I'll open the gates for you on your way down. Just one point. There must be no publicity on this matter. Understood?
Mr. Billings, if I can't prove that your diamonds were taken by a person, those space cats are going to get a lot of publicity.
How much time do we have? Minutes, days, months, years? We don't know. But this we do know. Civil defense is everybody's business. Just what is civil defense? It's your answer to beat the A-bomb. Civil defense is the way of saving lives and property. It's the way to protect you and your family in case of enemy attack on the United States. It's the way of helping you to keep going in spite of attacks with atomic or biological warfare or chemicals or conventional weapons. The aim of the enemy would be to make you and me and others quit our jobs so that our defense plants would have to shut down. Our aim, then, is to keep working because we must give to our armed forces the things they need to win. We must prepare now. How much time do we have to prepare? We don't know. But this we do know. Civil defense is everybody's business. It's your business.
While I drove down the mountain with gates electronically opening and closing behind me, I did some thinking. Billings had bought and paid for his privacy at tremendous cost. I couldn't see any loopholes in the setup. Yet, the diamonds had disappeared. 45 minutes later, I pulled up in front of the police station in Lakeview. Obviously, I was expected by the chief of police, Andy Prentice.
Hello, Mr. Dollar. My name's Prentice. Mind if I join you?
No, hop in.
Just cruise down by the lake. I'm sure you want this to be a private conversation, too.
Good idea.
Well, what's your opinion on the diamonds?
Well, I don't know who took them, but I'll tell you one thing. I don't believe it was some thing or somebody from outer space.
Well, how would you get through all those electrified fences, photoelectric cells, floodlights, and closed-circuit viewers?
Yeah. Well, what's your opinion?
I'm as practical and logical as the next fella. If a human being couldn't get to Mr. Billings without his knowledge, and he'd call me the moment somebody tried, well...
Oh, sure. Spacemen.
Well, what else?
I noticed one thing, Chief. He's a little hard of hearing and doesn't wear a hearing aid.
He doesn't need one. Just turns up the volume on all that electronic stuff he has around him.
Well, suppose someone parachuted onto the top of that mountain.
How would he get out?
Man could dig under those fences.
That would leave evidence, and I've been over every inch of the ground. I've even thought of the expert pole vaulter idea. No sign. Nothing makes any sense.
Yeah, I see what you mean. How about a ride in Billings' private plane? I'd like to take a look at that mountain from the air.
I don't know what good it'll do you, but I'll go along.
Well, maybe there are spacemen. But I still don't believe it.
We're coming to it now. See the road winding up? And there's the lodge.
Yeah.
I asked the pilot to circle around the top as close as the air pockets will permit.
Good. Chief, have the pilot drop down just below the top and steer a course between the two fences all the way around.
Whatever you say. Oh, pilot!
For the next few minutes, I studied the top of that mountain from all possible angles. The road leading up to it, the terraces, the lodge itself. Suddenly, an idea hit me. And a few minutes later, I left a somewhat puzzled chief of police at the landing dock on Clear Lake. An hour later, I was explaining who I was and what I wanted to do to a somewhat incredulous captain of police at San Francisco's International Airport. I finally convinced him I wasn't out of my mind, and he reluctantly agreed to cooperate. Then, about dusk, I found myself exactly where I wanted to be, on top of Billings Mountain, calmly walking toward the lodge. Good evening, Mr. Billings.
What?
I said good evening, sir.
Mr. Dollar. Why, I don't understand.
See? No spacesuit.
Why, I can't believe it. How did you do it? How did you get here?
The same way as the man who stole your diamonds.
But this is impossible. Impossible. My electric system gave me no warning.
That's because you have it located in the wrong place.
What?
It's in the two fences and between them halfway down the mountain. Above them, there is one level spot 50 yards across that isn't covered by your automatic whistles and bells.
But it isn't, it's not necessary.
Wrong.
Well, did you figure it out? If not, Johnny Dollar will explain it in a moment. March 2nd, 1958, yours truly, Johnny Dollar, on this Johnny Dollar Bob Bailey Hour of Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. The conclusion follows these messages from your favorite radio station. Just when you thought it couldn't get any better, Mike Lindell and MyPillow launching the MyPillow 2.0. Now, when Mike invented MyPillow, it had everything you could want in a pillow. Now, nearly 20 years later, he's discovered a new technology that makes MyPillow even better. Of course, the patented adjustable fill of the original MyPillow, but now with brand new fabric with a temperature-regulating thread, it's the softest, smoothest, and coolest pillow you'll ever own. Say goodbye to tossing and turning and flipping your pillow over in the middle of the night. And more great news on the MyPillow 2.0 buy one, get one free offer with my promo code Wyatt. MyPillow 2.0 is 100% made in the USA, 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio podcast square to receive the MyPillow 2.0 buy one, get one free offer. Use my promo code Wyatt or call 1-800-928-4715. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station. Now the conclusion of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in the Diamond Dilemma Matter for March 2nd, 1958.
It's in the two fences and between them halfway down the mountain. Above them, there is one level spot 50 yards across that isn't covered by your automatic whistles and bells.
But it isn't, it's not necessary.
Wrong. It's just big enough for a helicopter, which is waiting for me out there right now.
A helicopter?
You didn't see us because we came in and landed below your line of sight. You didn't hear us because you don't wear a hearing aid.
I can't believe it. But you must be right.
And you'll have to agree that your diamonds were not stolen by persons or things unknown on this earth. The terms of the policy.
Of course, I disallow all claim, but
Good. Now, it's none of my business, Mr. Billings, but was your San Francisco manager, Norton Shields, a pilot during the time he was in Korea?
Why, yes, he flew rescue missions in a helicopter.
Yeah. The company that insured your diamonds against ordinary theft might be interested to learn that. Good night, Mr. Billings.
Yes. Good night, Mr. Dollar.
You know, in some ways, I felt sorry for him. He'd spent millions of dollars to insure his diamonds and his privacy. Came a real showdown, and it turned out he had neither. Oh, he'll get his diamonds back, sure, and probably buy some more. But privacy, with or without money, is a pretty hard thing to come by. At least in this man's world. Expense account total, including incidentals and transportation back to Hartford, $284.30. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Our star will return in just a moment.
Civil defense information. This is basic civil defense information from the Department of Defense, Office of Civil Defense, Washington. When a nuclear bomb or missile explodes near the ground, great quantities of earth and debris are sucked up into the fireball and carried by the prevailing winds before falling back to Earth. This material is radioactive fallout. The particles look like grains of salt or sand. Fallout gives off invisible gamma rays like X-rays, and heavy exposure to it can cause serious radiation sickness, even death. If a person receives a small or medium dose of radiation, his body will repair itself and he will get well. Usually the effects of radiation from fallout are more severe in very young and very old persons and those not in good health. Radiation sickness is not contagious. The most dangerous period is the first 24 hours after fallout arrives, but you might have to use fallout shelter up to 2 weeks. For further information about fallout and how you can protect yourself against it, consult your local civil defense office.
Now, here is our star to tell you about next week's story.
Next week, a moth, a tiny moth, solves a case involving our national security. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, originates in Hollywood and is produced and directed by Jack Johnstone. Today's story was written by Alan Botsey. Heard in our cast were Edwin Jerome, Paul Dubois, Frank Gerstle, Junius Matthews, and Marvin Miller. Be sure to join us next week, same time and station, for another exciting story of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. This is Dan Cubberly speaking.
You know, while the quarter-hour episodes gave time to flesh out, and I think we got spoiled by those quarter-hour yours truly Johnny Dollars, because you had over an hour to flesh out the story, an hour and 15 minutes over 5 days. And even though if you take out time for a recap, you still had an hour to flesh out a full story. But the half-hour shows, 25 minutes of time, and you got to take out commercials, so it was probably about 20 minutes worth of time. Still gave you some pretty good shows. March 2nd, 1958, yours truly, Johnny Dollar. When Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox continues following these messages, we'll wrap up a quarter hour, yours truly, Johnny Dollar, from 2 years earlier. Now, as Johnny Dollar refers to it, the wind-up. On this episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, Part 5 of the 5-part series, The Fathom Five Matter, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, originally broadcast March 2nd, 1956.
From Hollywood, it's time now for...
Johnny Dollar.
Barney Wilson here.
All right, Mr. Wilson, I'm braced. Rub it in.
Well, you were a little overconfident.
Overconfident? Let's face it, I made a jerk of myself. After I apologize to you, I've got to crawl out there and apologize to Mrs. Markey.
I wouldn't be too hasty about it.
I've been putting it off for the last 2 hours. After the way I talked to her, I'd rather walk into a cage of lions than face her again. But I thought her husband was alive, and I thought she knew it. Then your boys have to go and pull his body out of the surf.
Well, that's why I called.
I had a tag for an out-and-out insurance fraud.
Mr. Dollar, the way it looks right now, I don't know what it is.
It was probably murder. What else?
Look, if you want to lose your mind, you come on over here to the morgue.
Why? What do you mean?
Mr. Dollar, I've been a detective for 20 years, but I've never hit one before that was as crazy as this.
Tonight and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. From Special Investigator Johnny Dollar, location Miami Beach, to the Home Office, Delta Liability, Hartford, Connecticut. Assignment, the Fathom Five Matter. It happened to involve a $75,000 insurance policy. Item 17, $1.60, taxi from my hotel to the county morgue. I couldn't figure what Wilson meant. When the cruiser Fathom 5 burned and sank and William Markey's body wasn't found, I thought I'd spotted an attempted insurance swindle. I'd even warned Mrs. Markey not to try to file a claim. And then, a few hours ago, Markey's drowned body had been washed up on the beach. Wilson should be happy. He'd been proven right. But instead, he'd sounded more mixed up and uncertain than he'd been before.
Good morning, Mr. Dollar.
You know, you don't pick the pleasantest places in the world to hold conferences.
I thought you might want to take a look at him. Though I'll be eternally blasted if I know what anybody could tell by looking. Well, there's the lad who's given us all the trouble, Mr. Dollar. William Markey, number 423.
I never thought I'd see him here. I told Mrs. Markey that the only thing that would convince me he wasn't alive would be to see his body. All right, I'm convinced. And I'll never try to outguess an ocean current again. Everything seemed to add up to... Oh, now, wait a minute.
I wondered how long it'd be before you noticed.
Doesn't make sense.
Like I said on the phone, this one is crazy.
This was pulled out of the surf this morning?
Right.
And the cruiser sank 5 days ago. That's when Markey supposedly drowned.
You're on the beam, Mr. Dollar.
This body hasn't been in the ocean for 5 days.
You win the 4-day trip to Bermuda and a complete new wardrobe.
Have you had an autopsy?
Doc Morgan just finished it 20 minutes ago. That's why I called you. Doc wouldn't stick around himself. You know, I think he went out to get drunk.
How long does he think Markey has been dead?
Not over 18 hours, since sometime last night. Looks like we were both right, for whatever good it is. He was alive after the sinking, just like you claimed, and now he's dead, just like I claimed.
What was the cause of death?
Drowning. Only you haven't heard the real crazy part yet.
Why? What do you mean?
You remember we found one of his shoes washed in a couple of days ago?
Yeah?
The body was wearing 2 shoes when they pulled it out.
They always make one slip, don't they?
A couple in this case.
Huh?
It's the second one that nearly pushed Doc Morgan off his rocket.
What second one?
Markey was drowned, all right, but not in the ocean.
Huh?
It was fresh water in his lungs, not seawater.
Was Morgan sure?
Swore by it, and then at it. That's what threw him.
Yeah, I imagine. When you get an 18-hour test on a man who's supposed to have been dead for 5 days and find fresh water when it ought to be salt. I guess the late Mr. Markey can't tell us much of anything else.
So, where do we go from here, Mr. Dollar?
Good question. You haven't found the car yet, huh? The one Markey bought under an assumed name?
No, but I gave the boys an extra prod to bear down on it. Half the town force is out looking for it now.
Wonder where he was hiding out for those 4 days.
What I want to know is who killed him and how and why.
Oh, the why is fairly easy. It's the who and how that carry the question marks. That fingerprint ID was certain, huh? There's not the slightest doubt of what this is, William Markey.
Oh, you're looking for an easy way out, Mr. Dollar.
Yeah, I guess I am at that. Well, then it looks like our number one is the lad you've been after all along.
Young Danny Haynes, huh?
What do you say we go and have a talk with him? Only one thing was wrong with the idea. It didn't work. Haynes wasn't in, and the clerk at his hotel said he hadn't seen him all day. The night clerk admitted that he'd slept through most of his shift and wasn't sure of anything. We searched Haynes' room and found nothing. So for the moment, we left it at that. Wilson put a stake out in the hotel and went back to his office. I went to my hotel and waited. Johnny Dollar.
Barney Wilson.
Yeah, what's up?
We finally got a break. The boys found that car.
Where?
Parked at the curb out on the east side of town. May have been abandoned there, or it may be where Markey was hiding out. It's in front of an apartment house.
Have they checked through it yet?
No, they haven't touched it. I'm leaving to go out there now. Want me to swing by and pick you up?
If you don't, I'll sue you. I'll meet you out in front of the hotel. We stopped a block away and walked up to the apartment house. The car was still parked at the curb, and the plainclothes man watching it said no one had been near it. We went on inside and found the landlady, identified ourselves, and started questioning her. Luck seems to still be with us.
Well, you see, most of my guests are permanent, as you might say. Or at least as permanent as renters ever are.
Yes, we understand.
In fact, the only unit I've let in the last 2 months is number 14. That's up one flight with a pull-down bed.
When did you rent that one?
Well, let's see now. I think it was, about 10 days ago. He paid a month's rent in advance.
What was his name?
Mr. Jones. A very nice, quiet, middle-aged fella.
He lived by himself?
Oh, yes, and never went out much. After he moved in, that is. He didn't stay here for the first 4 or 5 days after he rented it.
Until the night the Fathom Five sank.
When did you see Mr. Jones last?
Well, it's a funny thing. He went out yesterday evening and he didn't come back at all.
What kind of a car did he drive?
Oh, good heavens, I don't know. But you can look for yourself. It's parked out there at the curb. A friend of his brought it by a while ago.
What? What's the friend's name?
Why, I didn't ask him. He's an awful nice young fella. He said Mr. Jones was going on a trip and sent him to pick up his belongings. And he had Mr. Jones's key, so I decided it was all right. He's up there packing now.
12, 13. It's next door down there.
Better take it easy. It's hard to tell what to expect.
Right. He's in there, all right.
Try the knob. Easy.
It's locked.
And there isn't much choice.
Who is it?
Open up, Haynes. We want to talk to you. I said open up.
Get away from that door.
Watch it, Wilson.
I'm warning you, don't try to come in.
Well, we know now what to expect.
I'll cover the door here, Dollar. You go down and tell Dave to cover the outside windows and call in for a couple of squad cars.
Right. Hey, he's going out that window. There must be a fire escape.
Come on, let's hit the door.
There he is, at the bottom of the fire escape.
Hold it, Haynes.
Stay back!
All right, Haynes, it's up to you. Throw down that gun or I'll drop you. I'm sorry, kid.
He's down.
Yeah.
That second shot was dead center.
I know. I tried to hold low on him, but it jumped up on me.
Well, he said he'd die for her if it came to that.
It came to that.
It was after dark when Wilson and I drove out to the Marquis Beach House. There were no lights on and nobody answered the doorbell. So Wilson forced entrance and we shook the place down. We found evidence of a struggle in the study and in the bathroom. Water from the bathtub had overflowed behind the tile and was still seeping out along the baseboard. We found a dressing gown of Mrs. Markey stuffed in the back of a closet, soaking wet. Piece by piece, Wilson collected his evidence, and the picture became more and more clear. He phoned in for a fingerprint crew and went on working. I left him there and went back into town to my hotel and took the elevator up to my room.
Mr. Dollar,
What are you doing here?
waiting for you. They've got extras out. They say the police shot Danny Haynes. I thought maybe you could tell me what it's all about.
Sure. And what you mostly want to know is how much he talked before he died. Isn't that it, Mrs. Markey?
I don't know what you mean.
Then go on out to your house and ask Wilson. He's out there with a fingerprint crew. And I imagine he can tell you anything you want to know by now. I slipped up last night. I thought it was Haynes who came to your door. But it wasn't. It was your husband. And you told him to come back later. Then when I left, you called Haynes and had him come over.
If he said that, he lied.
I even gave you the idea for it myself. When I said the only thing that could convince me your husband wasn't alive would be to see his dead body. So you talked Haynes into helping you provide the evidence I said I'd have to have.
My husband's body was found in the ocean. They told me that this evening.
Yeah, but he didn't die there. He was drowned in the bathtub at your house, and you and Haynes did it.
You're out of your mind. Danny Haynes was lying.
Then go tell Wilson. It's his job now, not mine. Maybe you'll be able to convince him, but I doubt it. And I'm pretty sure you won't be able to convince a jury.
You think not. I'll get the best lawyer money can buy.
Yeah, you do that, Mrs. Markey, but don't plan on using any of that insurance money for it.
Why not?
Because there won't be any. That policy was already void when you and Haynes killed your husband last night.
What?
An attempted fraud cancels a policy the minute it's committed. In other words, Mrs. Markey, 5 days ago when your husband sank the Fathom Five and tried to play dead.
I don't believe it.
You've lost out all the way around, Mrs. Markey. Your husband, your boyfriend, your insurance claim. And now you stand a pretty good chance of losing your life. A 4-time loser. That's really a record. Expense account item 18, $321.60. Hotel and incidentals in Miami and transportation back to Hartford. Expense account total $684.95. End of account, end of report. Remarks? You quoted a line of Shakespeare at the start of this case, Ralph. Full fathom five, thy father lies. Well, you're wrong. It turns out to be the widow who lies. And lies and lies. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Remember, there'll be another exciting story of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, beginning next Monday night.
Next week. Well, if I'd minded my own business, I wouldn't have heard the girl beg for help. And from that point on, I needed help. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, is transcribed in Hollywood. Written by Les Crutchfield, it is produced and directed by Jack Johnstone. Heard in this week's cast were Mary Jane Croft, Barney Phillips, Carlton Young, Eleanor Audley, Sam Edwards, Shep Menken, and John Daner. Musical supervision by Amerigo Marino. Be sure to join us on Monday night, same time and station, for another exciting story of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. This is Roy Rowan speaking.
Though some of Hollywood's best voices were heard on yours truly, Johnny Dollar, there were no real guest stars, with the exception of once, Vincent Price. It was a delight. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. You can get all of the yours truly, Johnny Dollar shows going all the way back to 1949 from Ted at RadioMemories.com. He supplies shows on cassette, CD, or on flash drive for your computer. RadioMemories.com. Our webpage is classicradio.stream. We produce 21 hours of Classic Radio Theater Week, and you can hear them all streamed right there. You can learn how to build a classic radio collection of your own. You can contact me, find our social media links, and if you're so interested, you can buy me a coffee. The Buy Me a Coffee money helps us acquire additional classic radio collections and helps us maintain our distribution channels. Classicradio.stream. Have yourself a great day. Tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.